Why do we hiccup? In 1922, an Iowa farmer named Charles Osborne was weighing a hog before slaughtering it when he fell, and something inside him clicked. He started to hiccup, and he did not stop. Not that day, not that year, not that decade. Charles Osborne hiccuped continuously for 68 years. By the time it finally ended in 1990, he had hiccuped an estimated 430 million times. He married twice. He had 8 children. He lived to 96, and through almost all of it, every few seconds, his body did the one thing he could never control. Then one day, for no reason anyone could explain, the hiccups simply stopped. A year later, he died. Here's the strange part. In all that time, no doctor could figure out why it started, why it continued, or why it ended. Because the hiccup, this tiny, familiar, ridiculous little sound, is one of the few things your body does that has almost no purpose at all. Why do we hiccup? Here's the thing nobody tells you. Almost every reflex your body has is there to protect you. You cough to clear your airway, you sneeze to blast out irritants, you blink to shield your eyes. Every one of them earns its place. The hiccup earns nothing. It doesn't help you breathe. It doesn't clear anything out. It serves no obvious function in your body whatsoever. It is, as far as scientists can tell, a glitch. But it's a glitch with a 400-million-year-old story buried inside it. And to find it, you have to start with what a hiccup actually is. You probably think a hiccup happens in your throat. It doesn't. It starts much lower in a muscle you almost never think about, the diaphragm. It's a big dome of muscle stretched across the bottom of your rib cage, and it's the engine of your breathing. When it pulls down, air rushes into your lungs. When it relaxes, air flows out. Smooth, rhythmic, automatic. A hiccup is what happens when that muscle glitches. Out of nowhere, the diaphragm gives a sudden, violent, involuntary spasm, yanking down hard and pulling in a quick gulp of air. But here's the crucial second half. Just a fraction of a second later, about 35 milliseconds, a little flap at the top of your windpipe called the glottis slams shut. Your body pulls in a rush of air, then instantly snaps the door closed on it, and that abrupt stop, air rushing in and then hitting a shut door, is the sound. Hic, that's it. That's the whole event. A spasm and a slam. It even has a name. Doctors don't call it a hiccup, they call it singultus, from a Latin word that means a gasp or a sob. So what's pulling the trigger? The diaphragm doesn't fire on its own. It's controlled by a set of nerves, mainly the phrenic nerve and the vagus nerve, that run all the way from your brainstem down into your chest and belly. And that long, wandering path is the problem. Anywhere along that route, the nerve can get irritated, and when it does, it can fire off a false alarm. Eat too fast and a stretched stomach presses on it. Gulp a fizzy drink or a cold one or too much alcohol. Laugh too hard. Get suddenly excited. Any of it can nudge that nerve and set off the reflex. The hiccup is a wire getting crossed. But that just deepens the mystery. Why would your body have this reflex at all? Why is the wiring even there waiting to misfire? And this is where it gets beautiful. Because the answer isn't in you, it's in your ancestors, the ones with gills. Here's the twist. Hundreds of millions of years ago, our distant ancestors were fish, and later, creatures that lived halfway between water and land, like the tadpoles of today. A tadpole has both lungs and gills, and when it breathes through its gills, it does something very specific. It pushes water into its mouth, forces it out over the gills, and, crucially, it shuts a flap over its windpipe so the water goes to the gills and not down into the lungs. Push in, close the flap. Sound familiar? That is almost exactly the motion of a hiccup. A sharp intake, followed by the snapping shut of the glottis. Scientists noticed that the nerve circuit controlling hiccups is remarkably similar to the ancient one that controls gill breathing. In other words, the hiccup may be an evolutionary fossil, a leftover motor program from a time when our ancestors breathed underwater. We're not fish anymore, but the wiring never got deleted. Somewhere deep in your brainstem, a 400 million-year-old reflex is still installed, and every so often, it switches itself on. But there may be one more piece. One place where the hiccup isn't useless at all. And you did it before you were even born. Babies hiccup. A lot. In fact, fetuses hiccup in the womb constantly, weeks before they take their first breath of air, before their lungs have done anything. Newborns hiccup far more than adults do. Some spend nearly 2% of their time hiccuping, and that has led to a fascinating idea. One theory says all that hiccuping is exercise, a way of training and strengthening the breathing muscles before they're ever needed, like a rehearsal for a play that hasn't opened yet. Another theory points at feeding. When a baby nurses, it swallows air, and that air fills the stomach and takes up room. A hiccup, that sharp contraction, may help push the trapped air back up, clearing space for more milk. If that's true, then the one time in your life the hiccup actually does a job is when you're a baby learning to eat. After that, it's just along for the ride. Which brings us to the question you actually care about. If it's an ancient glitch, why do all those weird cures seem to work? Holding your breath, breathing into a paper bag, someone jumping out to scare you, drinking water upside down. They're not just old wives' tales, they're two tricks aimed at two different targets. The first group, holding your breath, the paper bag, all do the same thing. They raise the level of carbon dioxide in your blood, and rising carbon dioxide seems to suppress the hiccup reflex, quieting the spasms. The second group, the scare, the gulp of water, the pull on your tongue, all jolt or flood the vagus nerve with a different, stronger signal. You're basically overwhelming the faulty circuit with new input, trying to reset it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, because you're negotiating with a reflex 400 million years older than you are. So, why do we hiccup? Pull it together. 1. A hiccup is a sudden spasm of your diaphragm, followed a split second later by your glottis snapping shut, and that slam is the sound. 2. It's triggered when the nerves running to your diaphragm get irritated by eating too fast, fizzy drinks, or sudden excitement. 3. The reflex itself is most likely an evolutionary leftover. The same ancient circuit our gilled ancestors used to breathe, still wired into your brainstem, doing nothing but occasionally misfiring. Which brings us back to Charles Osborn, hiccuping on a farm in Iowa for 68 years. For most of us, that ancient circuit fires for a few minutes and goes quiet. His just never got the message to stop. A 400 million-year-old reflex stuck in the on position, running for a lifetime, because that's what a hiccup really is, not a flaw in you. A memory, a tiny involuntary echo of a creature you used to be 500 million years ago, breathing underwater, reaching up every now and then to remind you it's still there. So the next time you get the hiccups and someone tells you to hold your breath, go ahead and try it. But know what you're really doing. You're not fixing a mistake, you're quieting a ghost. If this made you look at that silly little sound a bit differently, hit subscribe. It's the whole reason videos like this get made. And drop a comment with a why question that's been rattling around your head. The best ones become the next video. And be honest, did you hiccup even once while watching this? Don't read this. Go watch it.